Hey everybody, it's Tafony here once again. Hope you're doing well. Today we have a doozy of an episode with the Neuzeit Instruments Warp. It is a wavetable, additive, polyphonic, multi-timbral, full synthesizer voice for your rack, and it sounds like this. Okay, while I try and follow a format to a certain extent, every episode of Rambling About is going to be certainly a little bit different, and the Warp episode will be no exception. I've had this one for months and months at this point, and to be totally honest, it is incredibly deep, and I have just been too intimidated and lack the time to really dive into it with all of the other videos, happenings, shows, everything, life, etc. going on. So today, I think what we're going to do is explore it together with some depth for the first time. I want to point out in the manual at the very end of the basically getting started guide, there's a huge banner that says keep calm and use presets. For how much of a train wreck this video is about to be, I've actually tried to spend a ton of time preparing it, a lot more than I do for most episodes, but there's just so much here, so I'm not going to cover every single aspect of it. When I miss your favorite feature about it, please shout it out in the comments. When I misrepresent something as well, please do the same. I just want to talk about this, share my thoughts, kind of ponder the question, I guess, is how much depth do you want in one module? Do you prefer everything separate? I'm fresh off of the Hydrosynth video, which I really love, which is kind of inspiring me to finally get back and jump into this one here today. I really think your rack is valid on its format alone, right? It's so nice to not have to have all these different power supplies and wiring standards and MIDI messages and all of these different considerations. If everything just used the same volt per octave standard, everything just used the same audio levels, everything used the same power supplies. I know that's always not the case in your rack, even there's 5 volt versus 12 volt and what have you, but like it as a format alone is valuable, I think. So to have full synthesizers, which this could easily, with the addition of effects, be a full desktop box in my mind, right? Say, do I want this in your rack? Absolutely. Is it too much though? I'm kind of pondering that as well. So let's just, rip the Band-Aid off and get in here. So as the manual says on that page that I mentioned, keep calm and use presets. So we're going to do just that. Here's load presets, additive bass. So now we have that going, I want to talk about a couple different things. There's not only a beautiful OLED display, I love my screens, thank you so much, but there's also this LED matrix that represents the galaxy. And what is the galaxy? Well, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but I just want to show you a couple different things here. We have a bunch of different basses. These are additive. Some of them, let's go wavetable pad. Go up a couple octaves. So you get a notched tuning control here, so we can jump in octaves. And we're basically just droning right now. Go to interaction, stereo outputs. And honestly, this thing excels at drones. I put it next to the VicX in this video because I wanted to sort of make some comparisons to that. At least put that seed in your mind that they can sonically sound a little similar. They are very different synthesizers, but there's some comparisons to be made there. This is presumably for percussions. You hear that big pitch envelope at the start, but just like I would really be considering this as a drone synth if you're at it. External ARP on this one. Anyway, we have this detented tune control, so octaves here, or semitones. or fine, fine tune control, but I will go back to octaves, which I think is the most useful. There is an onboard quantizer, which if I haven't said this enough already, there is endless amounts of depth here. Did I mention it's deep? There's everything. And the oscillator, the voicing sections themselves, insanely deep too. So let's talk about what's on board. There is a galaxy, so this is sort of like your wavetable, but you can also create your galaxy in a number of different ways. Let's go in and hit load galaxy. And when I say galaxy, they call it Gala XY because it's three-dimensional. If you spend any time with a piston Honda, a similar thing, albeit looped around, I believe is happening in the spherical wavetable navigator. But we basically have a X and Y wavetable that they refer to as a galaxy. So let's go to load galaxy. You get a couple different options. Go init with sines. So this will make all of our different shapes here all sine waves, and that will give you a starting point, but you don't hear much change in timbre within that. So let's go to basic shapes, and then it'll give us different oscillators. Maybe the best way to demonstrate all of this is to start with some pitch sequencing. So I'll come in here and we will go over there and do just that. And I will get a trigger going into that as well. Here comes our trigger. And note if this is your first rodeo with the Warp, I guess, there's an envelope, there's a VCA, there's LFOs on board, there's filter. It is a full synthesizer voice, so what's making this stop and start? Well, it's everything on board. Here's the polyphony count. You'll see that it is actually running in a polyphonic way right now, just because the triggers are re-triggering longer than they're being decayed. I don't have the polyphonic expander here today, but you can use it in that way. You can even use it in a multi-timbral way with that. And I don't remember on that front if it was just because you're using different parts of the galaxy, or if it actually could load its own galaxies per voice. But again, did I mention there's no end to the depth of this thing? Bring it back in here. So right now we are on basic shapes. I'll jump an octave down because this is kind of high. And then you get control over position X. So we're scanning along the X axes. You'll see there's some modulation happening internally to move them around. And then there's Y axes. So if I put it in the middle, you'll see the internal modulation kind of scatter it around, right? We'll get to how to change that in a little bit. But you can load some other galaxies as well. Here's bells. Bells 4, bells 5. Irregular. Here's a bunch of presets, but what we'll do here, we'll go init with basic shapes. Slow down this little bass line we have going. And you'll hear different basic shapes on either corner. Some little modulation going on. I kind of I really like that wave morphing sound, so I kind of try and aim to put it in the middle and then let my modulation scan through it all, rather than trying to find a specific point that I like. Here in the sine wave section here, it kind of sounds filtered out, but we'll get to adding the filter in a moment. So if we init with basic shapes, I'll back out here. There's a bunch of different ways you can do. You can do loading of galaxies from presets without loading the other parts of the presets, like the filter, the envelope, the modulation, and whatnot. Here's high speed. It can do everything, right? I'm going to miss something that I didn't like. AI generator here. I know AI is the hot buzzword of today, but you can come in here and basically make your wavetable. So you see the galaxy is showing us different positions from which we can generate. And there's some, dare I say, I don't know, chicken and egg sort of thing here where there's spectral analysis, placement of the wavetable. So you can create new wavetables using this AI generator based on spectral analyses, but there's also a spectral analysis layer once that table is placed. This is a new thing in the latest firmware. Again, depth. Many are going to say, yeah, it's not that complicated. This host is just an idiot. And while that is true, if this is something that interests you, definitely check out the actual Neuzeit video, because they go over it in way more depth than I'm going to here. But basically what I was saying about it being chicken and egg, I want my wavetable to sound this way. I can construct it from these harmonics. And many of you are probably going to point out that this isn't the most accurate description, and you would be right. So I can scan through the different positions and generate wavetables based on these harmonic outputs, and it'll create the wavetables based on that. So using this encoder here for parameter, scanning through, I like these high harmonic things. I'll turn this volume up a little more. But see, it's kind of mostly sines here, right? Ooh, that sounds nice. And I'm okay with leaving a couple sines in there, so I'm going to skip a couple parameters, and then we'll hit bake all. So now we're scanning through all those things that we sort of made backwards, I guess, right? So that's one way to do it, and then there's an additive one as well, which again, you can just sort of morph the waveform using these encoders here. And notice that it always resets to center so you didn't get any of that hard clipping. I don't know if that's what makes the Piston Honda sound so good, but I think sometimes hard clipping is actually not as bad as people say, but that's okay. But yeah, we can morph our waveforms here. So you set your position and then pick, and then I believe we can go through here in the galaxy and drop the waveform. And I believe as well that I dropped that on top of the existing wavetable that I was just talking about. Like I created that one using the AI generator, and then I picked an XY spot there to add it to. Again, like it's insanely deep. If you know spectral analysis synthesis, you know additive synthesis super well, you might really appreciate all these individual tools, but boy, there are a lot of them for someone who doesn't know that like I do. And on that note of how there's sort of a chicken and the egg thing in my mind of how you can place wavetables from spectra, there's also a spectra analysis engine on top of the wavetable one, and I'll show you the diagram right now of sort of how everything's laid out here, but you can ignore this completely if you should want to, but I'll demonstrate it sort of now. We're doing spectra analysis, so you'll see this is sort of analyzing the output to change the timbre, but it is not changing the wavetables itself within the wavetable. So we can kind of create a new complex shape and morph it this way. So there's a depth control for how much our envelope is editing that, basically. I'll turn this up in volume. You having fun? Yeah. Me too. Okay. So there's 1. Let's go over to 2. I like my stuff to move. Okay, you have to go down. I need my hands. So generate more and more spectra. You can jump in increments by hitting these encoders for a lot of things. That's not just limited to this parameter, but yeah, spectral analysis, there's just so very much. And if you hit it hard, you can get these nice square waves as well, which I really like. So turn this down in. Add a couple little things here. I'm going to quantize that. Quantize our baseline. We'll generate a new one. Let's slow it down even more. Drop it down an octave maybe. There's so much to this. Have I mentioned there's a lot to this yet? So because I kind of mangled our wavetable through doing all these different things, you can also load full audio files, right? You can sort of analyze different sections of it as well. Just when I think I've turned around and loaded everything, there's something I missed. Here's an experimental one that comes with the synth. And we'll pick that. You can scan through the wavetable and drop it. So there's everything. There's friggin' everything. Just when I thought I've covered it all, there's still more. For that reason, I'm going to load a preset because I mangled the crap out of that one, and we'll go into additive lead. Try 2. These all sound a little bit... They're filtered, was what I was going to say. That sounds nice. And I don't know if it's filtered because it's actually filtered too much, or it's just too many signs, or what, but... Zoom in on my oscilloscope as well. But what I wanted to show you is the next section, which is warp. So we have low-pass filter. See our warp here, so our envelope's being applied to our low-pass filter. I like that a lot. Warp, kind of the envelope depth, I would call it. You can send negative, resonance. And you can also bypass all of this. There's a drone mode as well, which I might honestly like just to clamor back any level of depth you can from the module. If you do your VCA, you're filtering elsewhere. It might just help narrow the scope, I guess. But again, many of you in my comments are masters, as you love to point out. And you might love having all of this power, right? The filters, they sound all right. You get 24 and 12 dB per octave. And a high pass as well. Same thing, 12 or 24. And the high pass, I actually will say this sounds really good. The low pass one, I don't, I wouldn't say it sounds bad. It's just kind of like unremarkable in a I'm impressed it's all in there kind of way. The high pass, I would say it sounds somewhat remarkable, I'd say. There's something to it. I like it. And then warp effects. So we have bend. And again, you can warp that using our modulation warp. I'm looking at it as like a modulation bus. Is that accurate? I don't know. Jumping through increments as well is nice. Just hit these encoders. And then fold. I love wave folders. And I love digital ones. This one, I don't know how many stages it is. I don't know if it's symmetrical or asymmetrical. But it sounds like that when applied here. There's drive. I'll turn off the wave folder for now. I really like being able to step through these values, honestly. That's a really useful feature. Warp is a nice thing too. And it shows you where that parameter is going based on the modulation. Something I talked about in the Hydrosynth video. I love that, right? I would never recommend the warp to a beginner, but I feel like, again, just showing beginners, or myself who is one too, showing where the modulation is being applied and where it's landing, super, super useful. Go over to Redux. Here we have bit reduction, and I don't know what negative bit reduction works, or how that works here. Let's take our warp down. Maybe that just works as an offset for applying positive warp, but when we do apply bit reduction, you can get into noisy territory. Take my drive off. Yeah. Go down an octave. And oscillator mix. So oscillator and mix. Each voice has two oscillators. You see they are some settings here for scanning through. We're ending up with some sort of polyphonicness going on, right? You can see it's consuming 3 of the 4 voices on here, and there's different positions for the XY, so we're offsetting them to give them pseudo multi-timbrality by making each voice different. What I would suggest, though, spread some octaves, do some tuning, add some perfect fifths to your different voices. Let's go into the other ones. See, there is semitones for that one. I like that. Oscillator mix here. Bring that in there. I don't like this chord it's making, so we'll just bring it down. Did I mention it's deep? Linear detune for some of that analog sort of warbly stuff, I think, is the idea. I don't want to use that so much here. Effects type, yeah, okay, so if there wasn't enough depth here, we have FM, so, yeah. But my experience when I was exploring this yesterday, the FM, I don't know if they just set them in ratios or at an well, I guess it's just 1-to-1. It's not like an operator layout, but it just always sort of sounds good. Maybe it's because it's through 0? I don't know. There's also phase distortion. Like, again, like, everything is on here. And that's a beautiful thing if you're interested and knowledgeable enough for everything. For me, AM ring mod, so amplitude modulation, hard sync, and I'm only applying this to one voice though. I'll point that out. So these changes and effects might be kind of subtle when you're listening to it, but what happens if we go over here, we have spread, phase reset and everything. You can copy from voice 1 to all of them. So now they all have FM, right? So it's a multi-timbral synth. I'm not entirely sure how this is set up here without the expander to spread those voices across the other different ones. But yeah, like, it is... I realize that this video might come across as being like sort of negative towards the Warp when it sounds amazing and it's insanely deep, but I just wonder if many will want this level of depth because I'm pondering that. However, it's absolutely amazing what they've been able to do, right? This is the power of screens. Like, you can present an entire insanely complicated system in 24 HP, right? You are going to hit limits in what I'm able to accomplish, but many of you will really appreciate all of these options, right? It is truly amazing to think that they were able to bring 4-voice multi-timbrality into Eurorack in a way that is at all manageable, right? I think that's truly amazing. So let's take it out of drone mode. And then come into our modulation section. So, and again, like, this is like electron level of detail and showing the envelopes. I love that. Certain things here that, besides this depth being a challenge for a beginner like myself, I really appreciate how they've demonstrated it all, right? Like, to be able to see the envelopes here, the only piece that's missing is actually having like a playhead showing its cycle, right? But it like shows you in such detail and such ease, right? How long the envelope is, what its shape is, how the curvature is exponential, I believe, or is that logarithmic when it has the curve and not, you know, linear straight down, right? Like, those pieces are really, really valuable. And that's our envelope here. Seeing it blinking too, to show us how the triggers are affecting it, right? Just by pulsing those LEDs. Everything is communicated, no button combos. And I really appreciate that. So I can save this, I can load this, I can recall it, but I'm not obsessed with how it sounds. Let's go into one that maybe we will be. And I'm going to put my position down into the middle more. I feel like, too, like, from a performance standpoint, in your set, it's totally viable, valuable, sounds good to start in one place and then manually come over here, move my wavetable, and where it's going to modulate itself around into a place that sounds different, so your patch can like evolve throughout the set. I really love the performative aspect of it. I just feel like it's gonna be tough for at least myself to get out of the preset surfing stage. You might be best to like sit down with this thing in like a pod, like I was doing yesterday, and create some of your own presets, really spend some good hours with it, building your own patches that you can take onto a performance, and then, you know, on stage you have all these performance tools to slowly evolve them. I believe the warp is going to affect my filter envelope, or maybe the filter directly right now. I'll go down an octave for some more bassiness. We're in screensaver mode now, so ignore what's going on the panel, but I'll wake it up. But it does sound really good. So what do we make of all these things, right? I don't know. I was a little bit going into this video thinking like, see, there's our voice spread. Let's get some beautiful strings. I was going a little bit into this video thinking like, I love the Hydrosynth so much that the warp that's been sitting unattended for a few months at this point could probably be sold, and now I'm spending time with it and I'm like, the issue is with me and not understanding it. It is not the warp itself. Do you know what I mean? If you're new to the show, forgive me that this one is a bit of a extra unsure. I'm not a journalist. I'm not trying to assess products or sell them to you or something like that, right? This is just video blog, and I want to sort of share my thoughts on it, warts and all, because sometimes my thoughts are like, I don't know. As I'm sure all of us have been that way. Like, this sounds so good though, which sort of makes me think of the Peak, although they're not very similar in any ways, but just of like how I felt like the output was so amazing, but I personally struggled to get there. But then I feel like the warp is worth putting the time into, because I love the form factor, I love the sounds that come out of it. I like the workflow too. I just like feel like there's just, you know, so much scope that I might need to sink my life into it. And now I'm starting to feel like it might be worth it. Because listen to that. Just like so harmonically rich, right? And somewhere on here, there's a way to mix these all. Oh, you gotta go voice by voice. So I can mute one voice. But then I gotta, there's probably some way to, how do I switch voices? Voice? No. Oh. Yeah, so you can put them in different places in the stereo field somewhere in here as well too. We're doing our ring mod. What if we change it to something else? Phase distortion, although I'm muting this voice. Did I mention it's deep? Oh, listen to that FM though. And if you've watched this channel for a bit, you know I generally don't like FM that much even. But then hearing it on here, it sounds so good. So like, I don't know, I feel like, I don't know. I might just sink my whole life into learning this thing. So, copy from voice 1, copy from voice 1. Raw power. I mean, the warp, I just want to point out, if there's one thing I can point out, this is on the scale of like a hydrosynth, right? Yes, there's no effects. Yes, it's completely different, but like it is a full polysynth, right? With all these different, like everything's different about it from its structure to its voicing, to its polyphony count, to everything else, but it's a full synthesizer voice on that scale. And to put that in your rack is quite the achievement. And the more time I'm spending with it now, the more I'm just like, yeah, it's probably worth the time. Detune here, interesting macro to have. But then in saying that, I'm grabbing it now and it's like, that's performative dissonance, right? Sounds like a political buzzword. I was just going to say, why would I want detune on the panel, but that's why. Listen to that. That's why. If we crank the speed and amount of our warp, we have some, like, interesting. Cranking the speed, making our VCA envelope shorter, I think. Y'all. Triggers out. Go back into settings, global, drone mode on. And I think spec here is spectral analyses. Warp on this side is filter, at least that's where it's assigned. Let's take my galaxy over a little bit. And there's modulation points to do all of these things. There's position X and Y, but I've been just using all the modulation on board because it's all there. Yeah. What do we think of the warp? Sounds amazing, insanely deep. Probably worth putting some more time in it, which I thought the whole point of this video is to be like, nope, maybe it's not, but I'm not going to let another dozen months go by pondering it. Yeah. What do you think of the warp? Let me know. I'm Tafony. Thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. Thanks for listening to my insane babblings of a madman. Rambling About is just a show. My video blog where I do just that. So hey, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Like, comment, subscribe. See you next time.